From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun.
Hello and welcome tonight. At least 40 persons, including security personnel, are reported killed in coordinated attacks on Shiroro communities of Niger State. Bandits strike again in Boko's Plateau State, leaving at least 8 persons dead. President Bola Tinubu commissions gas turbine independent power plant, another key project in Bayelsa State. And U.S. President Donald Trump urges Iran to return to negotiations as Vice President Vance heads to Pakistan for peace talks. On sports news tonight, CAF President Patrice Motsepe promises sweeping reforms are underway to restore confidence in African football amid controversy over 2025 AFCON final verdict.
And on business news, Niger's gross external reserves drops below $49 billion despite non-intervention by the central bank in the foreign exchange market.
And from the nation's capital, Independent National Electoral Commission postpones nationwide voter revalidation exercise until after the 2027 elections.
We begin in Niger State, where terrorists have invaded some communities in Shiroro local government area of the state, killing no fewer than 40 people in Bagna, Erena, and Yelwa communities. Sources disclosed that about 30 members of the Special Forces and operatives of the Department of State Services, the DSS, alongside 10 vigilantes, lost their lives after the attackers ambushed their camp. Meanwhile, the senator representing Niger East Senatorial District, Sani Musa, has visited victims of the attack who are receiving treatment at the Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida Specialist Hospital in Minna, where he assured that both the federal and state authorities are working to stop further attacks in the area.
Before leaving Abuja and coming to Minna, I was able to get in touch with the Director Operations of the Department of State Services. I also tried to reach out to the Chief of Army Staff so that they will deploy more of their men to the Arena axis, which when I spoke to his chief of staff, is this what do they call it, principal staff officer, he told me that they have already been alerted and the governor has already taken action and they are mobilizing more men to Arena and Baga axis. This is very unfortunate because all the efforts of government, every time the government have been taking the issue of security very seriously. And these guys, it's not a conventional kind of warfare. So unexpectedly, they regroup and then attack innocent people.
On his part, the Chief Medical Director of IBB Specialist Hospital Minna, Dr. Bala Waziri, confirmed that the hospital received several injured victims from the attacks, adding that most of them have been stabilized.
We received quite a number of them. That was 2 days ago, and most of them have been stabilized, as you can see. Some of them actually sustained fracture from the gunshot injuries, and then some of them had bruises and it was quite traumatic anyway, but we were able to stabilize all of them, and all of them are stable. We've discharged about 3 of them yesterday, and these ones are currently recuperating well, as you can see. We received up to 13 victims ab initio. That was like 3 days ago, and then just like I've said, some of them we didn't get to admit them there, and then we just stabilized them and discharged them, and then 2 were discharged yesterday, and currently we're with 8.
While Shiroro was experiencing that violence, of course, violence was again unleashed in the Plateau state, where no fewer than 8 persons have been killed following a late-night attack by gunmen in the Mbwele village of Boko's local government area. The assailants reportedly stormed the community at about 11 p.m. on Thursday, shooting sporadically for nearly an hour. At least 3 others sustained injuries and several persons remain missing. Sources say most of the victims are members of the same family. In a phone conversation, the local government chairman, Mr. Samuel Amalau, confirmed the incident to our correspondent and expressed concern over the recurring violence going on in that area. Now, the chairman of the community peace observers in Bokos said residents are angered by what they describe as failure of security operatives to respond promptly, revealing that some locals are already planning protests. He further alleged that security personnel were instead deployed to protect another community suspected to be the origin of the attackers. Meanwhile, the police public relations officer, Alfred Alabo, who confirmed the attack, said investigations are now ongoing and efforts are underway to restore calm in the area. In Borno State, Governor Babagana Zulum has expressed shock over the recent attack on the 29 Task Force Brigade in Binishek in Kaga local government area. Governor Zulum, who visited the brigade to commiserate with frontline troops over the loss of their commander and other soldiers, charged the military to review its security architecture to curb the emerging threats.
This is one of the most surprising attacks that I've witnessed in the recent times. There is a need for us to also review our security architecture, because credible intelligence was received that these madmen were trying to attack this space for about 3 days. I wonder how such thing could happen. Chairman, are you aware? Anyway, I'm here to commiserate with you, especially the loss of the brigade commander. So this is not a time for joy or time to blame ourselves. But there is a need for us to review the entire security architecture and then see how we shall reinforce this particular place.
Governor also assured the troops of his support, revealing that his administration will strengthen the resilience of the people and the communities.
I want to assure you that we shall strengthen the resilience of the army, strengthen the resilience of the community, and ensure that Benishek does not fall into the hands of Boko Haram again. I want you to redouble your effort on meeting the Sector 2 commander in Damaturu. But at your own level also, you have to review the situation, examine what has happened, do a SWOT analysis, and then report to us to see how the army and the government of Borno State will partner together to reinforce this place.
Meanwhile, the headquarters of Operation Hadinkai is expressing concern over the circulation of what it describes as false, misleading, and highly exaggerated reports across some television stations and social media platforms following the Binishek attack in Borno State. A statement signed by the Media Information Officer of Operation Hadinkai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, says the recent fall terrorist attack on troops' location in Binishek is being amplified with unrelated pictures and videos, which constitutes a deliberate attempt to distort facts, undermine ongoing military operations, and erode public confidence. The statement adds that Operation Hadinkai categorically refutes the claim that 17 soldiers, including a brigade commander, lost their lives during the incident. The statement further adds that official and verified report, as earlier released through Defense Headquarters, clearly stated that 2 officers and 2 soldiers paid the supreme price in the course of the engagement, and any contrary figure being circulated is entirely false, misleading, and devoid of credibility. According to the statement, the insinuation that the brigade commander's vehicle was unserviceable is equally incorrect, as the commander was mounted on a high-grade mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, which was temporarily immobilized in the heat of combat while he was actively coordinating the counter-assault. Residents of Wukari, the headquarters of Wukari local government of Taraba, are appealing to the state and federal governments to assist in sustaining the relative peace enjoyed in that community. This follows years of recurring crisis and unabated killing of residents by suspected armed men, leading to the displacement of many.
It's not the usual scene of holding dialogue to ensure the return of peace to Wukari local government area after years of recurring crisis, but one to celebrate those who have risen through the ranks of the Nigerian army and have contributed to the return of peace in their respective ways. 3 major generals and the president of the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, who are now the new set of decision makers in the once troubled Wukari community, are urged not to relent in sustaining the gains of peaceful disposition.
Today is about recognizing the dedication, the hard work, discipline, bravery, outstanding performance of our sons and daughters who have made this community proud, nationally and internationally.
The Tea versus Jukun crisis, bandits attack, kidnapping, herders-farmers clashes, among others, was before now the order of the day and has negatively affected economic activities and retarded economic development in Wukari. This has also led to the displacement and death of many residents over the years, which residents describe as their dark days.
We saw how it is bad for disunity. Now that peace is reigning, we should put heads together, unite with one another for progress.
With the coming of these 2 governments, from Dario's time to this government, they have been working very well to sustain peace.
The paramount ruler of Kwara Kingdom says the return of peace is worth celebrating, even as it calls for sustained efforts by the state and federal government to maintain peace.
Today is my heart filled with royal pride and fatherly joy as today my heart is filled as we gather to honor our illustrious daughter and 3 worthy sons who are 10 have brought great glory, dignity and recognition to our land.
Meanwhile, the state government has disclosed that it is not relenting in its peace effort and welcomes them to go beyond words to decision makers.
I want you to know that it is equally an induction ceremony into the Advisory Council of the Wukari Traditional Council. From now onward, you will bring in your wealth of experience and contribution to the day-to-day administration of this very community.
In jubilation, the community rolled out their drums to celebrate with optimism that Wukari's development will not experience the drawback syndrome that will cripple its growth.
In part 2 after the break, President Bola Tinubu commissions gas turbine independent power plant and other key projects in Bayelsa State. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. At least 40 persons, including security personnel, are reported killed in coordinated attacks on Shiroro communities of Niger State. Bandits strike again in Borno's Plateau State, leaving at least 8 persons dead. President Bola Tinubu commissions gas turbine independent power plant and other key projects in Bayelsa State. And U.S. President Donald Trump urges Iran to return to negotiations as Vice President Vance heads to Pakistan for peace talks. Still talking security, and this time in the nation's capital, FCT Commissioner of Police Mr. Ahmed Sanusi has conducted an extensive operational tour of Wukari Area Council and surrounding border communities as part of efforts to strengthen security and combat criminal activities in the nation's capital. During the tour, the Commissioner of Police personally led targeted operations resulting in the interception and arrest of 3 suspected kidnappers identified as Nasiru Abdullahi, Samaila Dahiru and Bello Usman.
The need for adequate and effective security is the reason for this tour of the FCT Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ahmed Sanusi. From the command headquarters of the force in Gariki, the team heads straight to the palace of the Sarkin Buhari, Alhaji Awal Musa, where the CP paid a courtesy visit and sought traditional support for the ongoing security operations. This is followed by a stopover at the palace of the Esu Buaya, His Royal Highness Mr. Ibrahim Yaro, where the traditional ruler is informed of the team's plan to conduct comprehensive security sweep of forest within his domain, as well as suspected hideouts for criminal elements. After reviewing security arrangement at Jere, a border community between the FCT and Kaduna State, a major breakthrough is recorded at Gidandogo, a border community linking Kaduna and Niger State, where 3 suspected kidnappers were apprehended.
This is an ongoing operation. Today, I decided to lead myself to this forest. This is a place in Federal Capital Territory, Wukari Area Council. Boundaries between the FCT and the Niger and Kaduna State. This is a place that has been infested by bandits and some banditry activities.
The CP further briefs journalists on strategic deployment across Wukari Area Council, noting that personnel have been adequately positioned to respond swiftly to security threats and prevent attacks.
We have 4 deployments to cover Abuja and Niger. We have 6 deployments that covers Abuja, Kaduna. These are main deployments. We have the intel-led deployments.
The operational tour continued through Garam in Niger State with the on-the-spot assessment of security infrastructure before terminating at the Nigerian Law School Wukari. The police boss says it is part of a broader strategy to enhance community collaboration, disrupt criminal networks, and ensure the safety of residents across the Federal Capital Territory.
President Bola Tinubu has acknowledged the growing hardship caused by rising fuel prices, noting that the country is still better positioned compared to some others. The president was speaking during his visit to Bayelsa State, where he inaugurated a number of projects, including a 60-megawatt gas turbine power plant. Addressing concerns over the economic situation in the country, President Tinubu noted that the challenges are not unique to Nigeria.
I'm here standing before you, promising that the challenges that we face, the memory of those who led this country, face the battle, the challenges of security. We will work hard. We will continue to equip and train our men and women of the armed forces. We will defeat terrorism and banditry. We're all working hard. And the project that I commissioned today demonstrates and testify to an immutable truth. Development advances further, faster, when the federal government and the state government work in partnership and towards a shared purpose. I hear you.
Bayelsa State Governor Doye Diri, speaking at a stakeholders engagement, presented a broader vision of transformation, highlighting ongoing urban renewal and road expansion projects in the state.
The administration's desire and decisive policy intervention have paved the way for meaningful reforms in various sectors, including the power sector, enabling us to deliver on our pledge of reliable, independent energy through the construction of a 60 megawatts gas-fired turbines. For us, it is a cause for thanksgiving and rejoicing. Equally significant is the iconic 630 meters Angama-Oporoma Bridge, a project promised by the federal government more than 6 decades ago, long predating your administration, but left to gather dust in bureaucratic files. We are delighted that the modest effort of the government of assured prosperity has finally addressed this pain of the people.
Over now to the nation's capital, where Terry Kumi is standing by to give us the latest of other news and updates, and of course reports from the Abuja studios. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. The Independent National Electoral Commission has postponed the planned nationwide voter revalidation exercise to a new date after the 2027 general election. The decision to shift the exercise to next year was reached after a meeting with resident electoral commissioners, where key electoral preparations and timelines for the 2027 general election were reviewed. A statement signed by INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman of the Information and Voter Education Committee, Muhammad Haruna, says the postponement followed deliberations on the exercise and its implications within the broader electoral calendar. INEC had previously announced plans to commence a nationwide voter revalidation drive beginning on April the 13th, 2026, as part of efforts to clean up the nation's voters register ahead of the 2027 general election. Now, the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed April the 14th for the hearing of a suit challenging the leadership of the African Democratic Congress, led by former President of the Senate, Mr. David Mark. The suit filed by Mr. Nephew Bala is seeking to stop Mr. Mark and all the party leaders from parading themselves as executives of the ADC. Justice Emeka Nwite fixed the date after hearing notices were issued to all parties in the case. The case has the ADC, David Mark, former Interior Minister Rauf Aregbesola, INEC, and former ADC Chairman Ralph Nwosu listed as defendants. The matter had earlier been adjourned indefinitely pending the outcome of an appeal challenging an earlier court order. The federal government says it has secured 386 convictions out of 508 terrorism-related cases prosecuted at the Federal High Court. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, disclosed this to journalists at the conclusion of the 9th phase of the mass trials. The AGF added that 8 defendants were discharged, 2 were acquitted, while 112 cases were adjourned to the next phase of proceedings.
In total, we brought about 508 cases. Of these 508, we were able to secure 386 convictions, 8 discharges, 2 acquittals, and 112 adjourned to the next session or phase. Don't forget that this is the 9th phase. The 10th phase will come up between the 15th and the 18th of June by God's special grace. So that is the information that I have. And the fact that you have discharges and acquittals speak to the fact that we have been following due process. Anybody who is not guilty will not be sent to jail. And the fact that we brought them to court also speaks to the fact that we recognize that the oversight function of the judiciary. And this is what has taken place. The type of punishment that the judges dished out to send clear signal to people involved in terrorism and terrorism financing that there is no space for them here in Nigeria. We cannot stop them from going elsewhere, but as far as the Nigerian space is concerned, there is no space. We will not be able to accommodate them. We have been able to bring justice to them or bring them to justice.
In Kaduna, the state government has taken a step towards strengthening its education sector with the validation of 2 key policies, gender in education and life skills education. The initiative is aimed at promoting inclusivity and equipping learners with practical skills for everyday life. According to the State Ministry of Education, the policies demonstrate Governor Obasani's commitment to creating an education system where every child, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to succeed.
A gathering of policymakers, education experts, and development partners with a shared goal, redefining the future of education in Kaduna State, focusing on empowering adolescent girls.
Many years ago, so we are really very pleased to be able to do this together.
The workshop is organized by World Bank Assisted Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment in collaboration with the Kaduna State Ministry of Education to review and validate 2 strategic policies designed to improve education outcomes, particularly for adolescent girls.
If you look at there are many in the northern part of this country.
The gender in education policy focuses on ensuring equal access to quality education for all, particularly addressing barriers faced by girls and other vulnerable groups, while the life skills policy designed to empower students with essential skills.
Today's workshop is to validate 2 policy documents, the gender and policy and the life skills policy. Basically, the reason for this, number 1, gender policy is to bring together, ensure that our education system is all-inclusive. And then, of course, government should consider the principles and practices of gender mainstreaming into our system of education.
We have seen live that when girls go through school and are educated and are able to acquire those critical life skills, honestly, this issue of child marriage we are discussing will no longer be there.
Discussions focus on increasing school enrollment, reducing dropout rates, and addressing barriers such as poverty, early marriage, and inadequate infrastructure.
Publishing it for public consumption.
Stakeholders also emphasize the importance of adequate budgeting for education and de-emphasizing over-dependence on development partners.
The objective of that policy is to get the girl child enrolled, transit, retain, and complete. So once you have the girl child in school, early marriage is in.
The budgetary allocation to education has been over 25%. This is well above the national average and above the threshold recommended by UNESCO. This, in my view, is preparedness, because education is the responsibility of government, first of all.
With the validation process now complete, attention shifts to implementation as stakeholders express optimism that the policies will transform education delivery across Kaduna State.
Still ahead on News at 10, Nigeria's gross external reserves dropped below $49 billion despite non-intervention by the central bank in the foreign exchange market. That's on Business News. So stay with us. Welcome back to the News at 10. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Pate, says the federal government has taken a major step toward addressing malnutrition and food insecurity across the country through the National Community Food Bank program. Speaking during the inaugural steering committee meeting for the program, which held in Abuja, the minister explained that the initiative aims to connect vulnerable women and children to food and nutritional support through the primary health care system, using vouchers and digital tools. The minister announced that Borno State will serve as the pilot state, which plans to expand across all geopolitical zones and eventually cover the entire 36 states of the country. The steering committee, which is chaired by Professor Pate, includes representatives from relevant ministries, religious and traditional leaders, and development partners.
Today, we inaugurated the steering committee for the National Community Food Bank, the program that will connect children, women who are vulnerable through the primary healthcare system using vouchers and digital tools to food and nutritional support. The steering committee, which I chair, will comprise ministers of women affairs, humanitarian, agriculture, other relevant government bodies, but also religious, traditional leaders, multilateral organizations, to ensure that the operating guidelines are adhered to, that the resources are channeled faithfully, transparently, and with good accountability mechanisms, that the delivery takes place.
SECO will periodically review performance against targets whatsoever, agree the milestones, really checking where we are against the milestones and what are the bottlenecks. They will also provide, the SECO will also provide guidance as we make decisions around the direction for scale-up, selection of locations in states, selection of facility, and alignment of the scale-up plan with the resources that the program also has.
Nigeria and the United Nations have reaffirmed their resolve to strengthen partnership in the areas of women and youth empowerment across the country. At a meeting with a delegation of the United Nations led by its Assistant Secretary General on Youth Affairs, Mr. Philippe Pollier, in the presidential villa Abuja, Vice President Kashim Shettima said the partnership will be actualized through key initiatives under financial inclusion, skills development, job creation, and peace and security, among others. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima receives the delegation from the United Nations, led by its Assistant Secretary General on Youth Affairs, Mr. Philippe Pollier, in the conference hall of his office at the State House, Abuja. This meeting is on strengthening the partnership between Nigeria and the United Nations on women and youth empowerment, which the Vice President notes is essential to the realization of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda.
Our young people stands as a reservoir of ingenuity, energy, and renewal for a world in search of capacity. So be rest assured that Nigeria is poised to really fill in that gap, and the evidence is already before us. Of the 9 or 10 unicorns in Africa, 7 are in Nigeria. So the anticipated demographic bulge, Your Excellency, I want to assure you, will be transformed into demographic dividends. The issue of gender participation is receiving top-level attention. The President believes in gender parity, in gender empowerment and gender equality.
Vice President Shettima also proposed the creation of institutional mechanisms to midwife the advancement of Nigeria's objectives for youths and women, working in collaboration with the United Nations and other partners. The UN Assistant Secretary General on Youth Affairs, Mr. Philippe Pollier, assures of supporting the federal government's development vision in addition to the multi-level support provided by UN agencies in Nigeria.
What I found in this meeting is a leader that really understands that this is a critical topic, a president that has put this at the center of development in the country, of course with many still challenges, in terms of access to education, jobs, but on the right direction of trying to achieve this. And the most important commitment here is that the UN in Nigeria is here to support the country and the government on that direction. People, the ones that know what Nigeria needs are the people of Nigeria.
Both the Vice President and the United Nations delegation emphasized that advancing youth development requires gender equality as well as access to employment and education. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, that wraps it from the nation's capital. Let's go back to Lagos now, where Ayo is standing by to continue with the rest of the news.
Thank you so much, Terry. CIG Motors Company Limited, recognized as the exclusive partner and distributor for premier Chinese automotive brands in Nigeria, has struck a partnership arrangement with Stanbic IBTC Bank to enable Nigerians own brand new cars through a flexible financing scheme. This initiative, facilitated through the CIG Easy Pay and Stanbic IBTC, brings on board lowest automobile financing rates in Nigeria at an affordable interest rate and repayment plan.
Nigerians are about to experience a novel way of acquiring a brand new vehicle with no financial anxiety with the coming of a product called Easy Pay, a well-worked-out scheme that's being launched. The Easy Pay is birthed through the CIG Motors and Stanbic IBTC Trusted Funding Program.
CIG Motors brings affordable, reliable vehicles, strong after-sales network, and a growing national service capability across the country. And that matters because, as you all know, mobility is not a luxury. Mobility is productivity. I believe that reliable transportation should not be a distant dream. It should be a dream, but it should be dreams that come true very easily in a practical way for every hardworking Nigerian. And we believe that this collaboration with CIG Motors further affirms this belief.
This flexible automobile acquisition scheme is designed to unbundle all bottlenecks associated with vehicle ownership in Nigeria.
We are ready. Our entire network is primed for this, and we're waiting for customers to come. And the experience will not be disappointing in any way.
Exigency of life truncated your cash flow. Insurance will kick in and begin to pay your rental, so you don't have anything to worry about. It's being fashioned into the facility.
The vehicle is started after the final quality inspection.
After the delivery of statements from representatives of both parties, it's time to see the assembly plant, as well as an array of vehicles on display. Purchasing a vehicle under this package costs 3 million naira and above, which comes with interest rates as low as 2.1%, including a repayment period of 60 months.
Affordability and accessibility is a big deal for us. So it's not just the wealthy, it's not the well-to-do, but it's the average Nigerian who is out there, doing a 9-to-5 job, who ordinarily couldn't have afforded that vehicle. Those are the kind of people Easy Pay is built for.
Management of CIG Motors says beyond advancing sustainable energy transportation in the country, its partnership with Stanbic IBTC Bank to bring the Easy Pay program on board is to ease the age-long stress of acquiring automobiles by Nigerians.
So let's now join Dominic Ururo for the very latest in the world of business. Dominic.
Thank you, Ayan. On business news, the country's gross external reserves has dropped below the $49 billion level, which it held onto for some time this year, as the external buffer declined by $240 million to $48.89 billion as at April the 8th. The figure, which was obtained from the website of the central bank, marks the fourth consecutive week of decline in the forex reserves. The latest level of the reserves, which is far from the 13-year high of $50.45 billion reached in March, comes despite no intervention in the foreign exchange market by the central bank. However, forex traders attribute the decline to the payment of external debt obligations such as euro bond interest and multilateral loan repayments by the CBN, as April is a significant month for international debt repayments. Meanwhile, the Naira has gained 2% against the dollar this week at 1,355 Naira. Pan-African credit rating agency Intelligence Africa Ratings has assigned a AAA national scale and B+ international long-term issuer credit ratings to the Bank of Industry Limited. In a statement issued today, the rating firm says BOI's standalone credit assessment reflects the bank's strengths and strong capitalization, supported by periodic capital injections by the federal government, relatively diversified obligor level loan portfolio, and robust liquidity structure, supported by a high proportion of liquid assets and access to long-term concessionary funding from reputable development finance institutions. The Cocoa and Coffee Farmers Alliance Association of Africa has unveiled a 3-year development plan aimed at increasing cocoa and coffee production across the continent and improving the livelihoods of farmers. At a webinar attended by key stakeholders today, the association says the first phase would involve establishing governance structures, mobilizing funding, and unveiling GPS mapping by the second quarter of 2026. It adds that the implementation timeline for the plan is designed to strengthen agricultural output, enhance value chains, and promote sustainable farming practices among cocoa and coffee producers in Africa. And from there, we head to the stock market, where the total value of listed equities climbed to more than 131 trillion naira, despite softer volume of trades and negative market breadth. John Mekwa tells us more.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, I come bearing good news again today as we see investors bringing in 392 billion naira into the NGX, and that has earned us a new level for the market cap. For the very first time ever, we hit 131 trillion naira and building on that. The all share also is building on that 203 that we hit yesterday, 203,770.40, and it's green 0.54%. We look at the sectors and we'll see where this good news is coming from. First of all, banking. Banking retains the green color, 0.64%, because of GTCO, First HOCO, and UBA. Consumer goods does even better. Well, a giant like Guinness has contributed to this, as well as Champion and International Breweries. However, on the flip side, we see oil and gas, but not so bad. It's just really low, 0.01%, because of profit taking on Japan Gold. So we see on the gainers list, I think there's a new entry that seems really determined. That's Transnational Express, a logistics company. For the third session running, we've seen them as top gainers. Something should be happening around the International Breweries. We told you about it earlier, as well as Champs. On the flip side, that's for the losers for today. We see Omatech, Austin Laz, and Wapik. They made the top losers, but they are not able to send the bull away from the market. It's still a win for the bull.
Thank you, Ini. We end business news with mostly positive closes from major global stock markets for Friday. And that's it on business news. Back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks, Dominic. Simon Pusey is up next with Around the World in 5 from our London studio.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US President Donald Trump has accused Iran of doing a very poor job, dishonorable some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz, arguing it was not the agreement we have. The comments reflect the fragile nature of the ceasefire agreement, with reports showing conflicts on what was included in the accord. It came as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government were to begin direct talks with Lebanon, focusing on the disarmament of Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group, and establishing peaceful relations. A US State Department official confirmed it would host a meeting next week in Washington to discuss ongoing ceasefire negotiations with Israel and Lebanon. Russia and Ukraine have agreed a truce for Orthodox Easter, with Vladimir Putin saying he's ordered Russian troops to cease fire in all directions this weekend. The declaration from Moscow came after Volodymyr Zelensky issued repeated calls for a ceasefire, all ignored by the Kremlin. People need an Easter free from threats and real movement towards peace, he wrote. Russia has a chance not to return to strikes after Easter as well. Earlier this weekend, Zelensky said he had asked the United States to pass on a proposal for a holiday weekend truce to Moscow as a first step. The Indian government has proposed changes to extend its regulatory framework to a wider range of online news voices, including influencers and podcasters on platforms such as Facebook, YouTube and X. Last week, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology suggested amendments to India's IT rules, which govern digital media content to include users who are not publishers who share content related to news and current affairs, with a code of ethics it currently applies to registered news publishers. Experts say this will potentially give the government more power over news-related posts shared by ordinary users, including independent journalists and podcasters.
I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation.
First Lady Melania Trump has denied connections to Jeffrey Epstein, telling reporters at the White House that any claims linking the two need to end today. In a surprise announcement, the First Lady called for congressional hearings for survivors of Epstein's sex trafficking. She also denied online rumors that Epstein had introduced her to Donald Trump, calling them mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. It is unclear what prompted the announcement. There was no prior indication from her office that she would make any statement on Epstein, and the White House did not share the topic earlier when her remarks were put on its daily schedule. China's President Xi Jinping has received Taiwan's main opposition party leader in a rare meeting which saw both sides stress a desire for cross-strait peace. Cheng Li-wen is the KMT's first sitting leader to visit China in a decade. In 2016, Beijing cut off high-level communications with Taiwan after the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's Tsai Ing-wen became president, citing her refusal to endorse the concept of a single Chinese nation. The DPP is among those who have criticized Cheng's trip, accusing her of being subservient to Beijing. Beijing claims Taiwan is part of its territory and has not ruled out taking the self-governed island by force. Benin is heading into a decisive weekend vote with power set to change hands after a decade under President Patrice Talon, whose time in office leaves behind both measurable economic gains and deepening political tensions. Romuald Wadangui, the 49-year-old finance minister and candidate of the ruling coalition, enters as the dominant figure and is widely seen as Talon's preferred successor. His only challenger is Paul Hounkpé, the lone opposition contender on the ballot. With growing fears that the militant Islamist insurgency that has engulfed large parts of West Africa is spreading, security has been dominant in the campaign trail. Sunday's presidential elections comes 4 months after the outgoing president survived a coup attempt. And Pope Leo XIV has been seen spinning a basketball on his finger. Players from the US exhibition basketball crew, the Harlem Globetrotters, aided the pontiff, who learned the new skill in front of a cheering crowd. The light-hearted moment happened during the Pope's general audience, a weekly event where he greets visitors and pilgrims from around the world. It was reminiscent of a previous visit to the Vatican by the team, when Pope Francis also tried to keep a ball spinning on a single finger. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. CAF President Patrice Motsepe has expressed his frustration over the circumstances surrounding the 2025 AFCON final, revealing that sweeping reforms are already underway to restore confidence in African football. Speaking during his visit to Morocco, Mr. Motsepe did not hold back in his assessment of the situation. He emphasized that the governing body is taking decisive steps to review and overhaul key systems, including regulations governing competitions like the AFCON. Man City manager Pep Guardiola believes that winning all their remaining Premier League matches is essential to their title chances. Now, Guardiola has overseen an incredible 28 wins in the last 31 top-flight games during this month with Manchester City. Ahead of Sunday's clash with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, the 55-year-old Spaniard believes his team must be flawless to make it 7 Premier League titles in 10 years, with just 8 games remaining. And the main news again. At least 40 persons, including security personnel, have been reported killed in coordinated attacks on Shiroro communities of Niger State. And in Plateau State, bandits have struck again in Bokos Plateau, leaving at least 8 persons dead. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good night and have a great weekend.